Today I visit with BJ Tracy from Coal Camp, Missouri. I'm Rick Jey, and this is Spotlight on the Arts. Welcome to Spotlight on the Arts, coming to you today from the Lamey's Building, Josie Record Shop, here at the Lamey's Building in Sedalia, Missouri. I would like now to ask you to turn and welcome to the show BJ Tracy. So welcome, good to have you with us. I've been looking forward to this for quite a while now, since we met at the SVAA meeting in Sedalia, Missouri. So, Mr. Tracy, welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here. And please call me BJ.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Well, let's go on and let's get to know you a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit about BJ Tracy?
Yes, sir. Well, I'm from Dallas, Texas, not originally from Missouri. I met my wife in Dallas, and right after high school graduation, before I got married, I worked as a draftsman for Collins Radio, a little company. It wasn't little then, but to me it was huge. They did the communication systems for the Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo missions, and I was a draftsman and got to see firsthand how a lot of the work went on for making radios and antennae. And that was quite an eye-opener and quite an experience for someone fresh out of high school. And from there, had a quick jaunt in the Marine Corps. And from the Marine Corps, I went back to Dallas and went back to Rockwell International at that time, and mainly as a draftsman, and got into design work. Thanks to Uncle Sam, I was able to go back to college and learned all about the new CAD programs that were coming out, and became a design draftsman, and then worked up into more mechanical engineering and electromechanical engineering. Back then, Vietnam was coming to a close, or had come to a close, and basically working on Department of Defense contracts. I call them war toys, people call them weapon systems. But it was a lot of good experience. And then in '84, I left Dallas and moved to Missouri, where my wife is from, and raised my kids here. They went to Coal Camp High School, graduated there, and then went off to college, and went to college at Charleston in Charleston, South Carolina. Both of them graduated there, and they said, "Dad, you know, we love you, but we're not coming back to the Midwest." So I thought, well, goodness sakes, I gotta figure out something. I wanted to be a input on my grandbaby, so we moved to Georgia for about 25 years, keeping my house here, and just moved on to Georgia, and now they're off to college, and so I came back. And once I came back, that was after COVID, and that's how I got into painting.
I see.
We came back, and I wanted to get involved more with the painting and surrounding myself with like-minded people. So I joined the Sedalia Visual Arts Association, or SVAA, to be around artists and to just stay in touch with what is going on in the art world.
And you know, BJ, we're going to talk extensively about how this, as BJ, is what I call an amateur. And you're going to see in his work, as we're here talking on the timeline, you're going to see how he started following different artists and running into mentors along the way. So we're going to tell that story after half, but I'd like to go back and you say family. Would you like to say hey to the wife and the kids? Give them a greeting.
Yeah, just hello Denise and Tricia, Mariah, Terry, Craig. The grandbabies will be Caroline, Peyton, and Braden, and Molly and Rye.
Great. Sounds like a great family
They're
situation.
wonderful.
Yes.
I'm blessed.
Oh yes, I was going to say we are blessed with those youngsters that make our world as we get older. Well, great, and I'm sure a lot of people identify with. Not too many people worked on the weapons or the CAD system, but there's some out in the world there. I'm sure I'm quite familiar with the CAD system and some of my past. Although I didn't do the work, but I definitely had someone that was on the computer working those CAD programs to design this or that as a product from that client or customer. So I'm in tune with you there, BJ. Can you share with us then how you became really inspired to become an artist?
Well, I've always
Back
been
to childhood, or
yes, sir. I've always been interested in art. As a young boy, I was a sickly child for a while.
I see.
And had long stays in the hospital. And because of that, my parents would bring me paint by numbers. And I got pretty good at it. I thought I was really good at it. Anyway, when I got a little older, my parents were like, well, what do you want to do when you grow up? I said, I want to be an artist. No, you can't do that. You can't make a living. So the next best thing was a draftsman. And
Yes.
that, in a way, is art. And
that's right.
then what furthered it, one of my jobs I had in a prior life, I did a lot of international traveling, went to Europe quite a lot, and over there I fell in love with the museums, the Louvre in Paris, museums in Stockholm, Helsinki, Munich, just all over Europe, Madrid.
We have a painting we want to share with the viewers from the Louvre's French artist. Would you like to describe that? Because it's going to appear on the timeline here.
Flowers in the Vase.
Flowers.
And I really enjoyed the Louvre so much that when I had the opportunity to go there, I would spend a day just looking at the artwork. And the artwork was tremendous because they have murals that are 10, 12 feet tall, 30, 40 feet long, and just spectacular. But most of all the Dutch painters were my favorite and still are.
Yes, the colors, the mixing, the pigments, they mix their own pigment. It's just fascinating, some of the Dutch artists, where they came up, and the depth and the clarity and whatever. I agree with you 100%. I just love to look at some of those. So that, as a beginner, that's kind of helped begin now into an amateur stage of painting. And now I guess we're on a road to hopefully be recognized as a professional. Now they say once you sell a painting, you become professional.
Well, that's what they say.
Have you reached that point yet?
No, sir.
So we've got that to look forward to, folks. Okay. Well then, on that note, BJ, what continues to inspire you as an artist now at this stage of your road to professionalism?
Well, yes, sir. In 2020, as everybody knows, the world came to a stop due to COVID. And that was in March. And when I lived in Georgia, I became I got bored. I had to retire early, but I got bored and went back to school and became a Georgia Master Gardener. I was active in that for 11 years. But during COVID, you can only pull so many weeds a day before your hands get sore.
Yes.
And so I would start streaming TV and looking at different things. And Bob Ross kept popping up. So I started watching Bob Ross. And then I found out that Bob Ross was taught how to paint by a man named Bill Alexander or William Alexander. So I started watching him. And about middle of May, I told my wife, I said, I could probably paint like that. And she bought me a kit. I did my very first Bob Ross painting on June the 1st of 2020. And I was hooked.
And that's on the timeline. Did you have a title for that?
No, sir.
Is it Seascape? I can't remember.
No, I can't remember either.
Okay.
But anyway, so I started doing the wet on wet or a la prima, ever how you want to call it. And Bill Alexander was very good at explaining colors and stuff. And he was from Germany, and he was in World War II. And he got his start, I guess, basically over there when he was captured as a German prisoner.
That's, what a gift.
And he did portraitures of the officers. And after the war was over, he came over here through Canada and became well known. And he taught Bob Ross and several others how to teach.
And that's one of my favorites, Bill Alexander, going all the way back to
Yes, sir.
the days of Bill Alexander. And so many have been inspired by his work. So, well, we're going to talk about some other people you ran into in the second part, like I think Richard Monson locally. He has some local, should we say, mentors. After we come back from break. Well, BJ, I'd like to, before time gets away from us here, your art really speaks well for you. And so we've been viewing some as we're giving the dialogue. But before time gets away, can you give us, in case there's someone who would like to maybe purchase a painting or even do a commission work, and you have a website and a way to contact
Yes, sir.
you. So can you give us that information?
Yes,
look at the
sir.
camera and give us that.
My website is up and it's running. It's not complete yet, but I'm still working on it. I'm not real tech savvy, so it takes me a while. But my website is bjtracyart.com, and it's Tracy, Tracy, no E, just like the comic strip, if you remember Dick Tracy. And if you want to send me an email, it'd be bjtracyart@gmail.com.
Very good. That'll be on the scroll. We'll put that below so they can't miss it. Well, BJ, we must take a break.
Okay.
So please make yourself comfortable while we look at these special messages.
Thank you, sir.
After the break, BJ will fill us in on his favorite subject matter, his materials used, and a couple of his favorite paintings, which you see on the mantle here of the fireplace. He might even share with you maybe a technique that he's learned. I know we at one point discussed graying down colors, and that may be a new term to some of the amateurs. But I think BJ has learned that, and so he's going to share that technique and a few others that might come up that he uses. So I hope you'll stay tuned for the second half. There's so much more here on Spotlight on the Arts. Stay with us.
This facility doesn't look anything like it did when I first saw it. My very first job was right here making Levi's for the J.A. Lamy Manufacturing Company. The people who I worked for were great. It was hard work and it was brutal, but the family that owned the building were fair and honest, and they were great to work for. I worked here 7 years. My father worked here 21 years and my mother 10 years. And it was just a great place. I've never regretted it.
Welcome back to Spotlight on the Arts. I continue with my special guest, BJ Tracy from Cole Camp, Missouri. Well, BJ, before the break, we shared a lot of information, so let's continue along those lines of thought and expression. I'd like to now ask you to please, in your way, describe your type of art and how that came about in the past somewhat, and with your skills nowadays being considered. How would you like to answer that question?
Okay, sir. I paint in oils, but let me back up. During all this time of doing the Bob Ross and Bill Alexander paintings, I would get up at 5 in the morning, every morning, and do a painting. And after about 2 or 3 months of doing all that, I was like, there's more to this than what I'm doing. And I started reading. So I still paint in oils, and I learn as much as I can. I consider myself a student. I'm not a professional. I feel like if I can learn techniques from other people, it's just a benefit to me. But more than anything, if you just get out there and paint, you learn a lot. So I do that. And what I've learned from just having to paint over things is it's just growth. You have that growth.
Well, as I stated earlier, that BJ on his travels, I was so impressed at the meeting of the SVAA, Sedalia Visual Arts Association, where he was a presenter. I saw that he was beginning, but he was moving along, accelerated. So and his presentation spoke well of how he did dig in and try to find every little technique or whatever would help along the way. And now I am very happy to endorse them as, gaining momentum on his pathway here to the professional end. At some point, we will be able to identify BJ Tracy as a professional, I'm sure. And like I say, as you see on the timeline, his artwork is speaking well for him. So at some point, when he's ready to be identified as a professionalism, whether it takes a sale or if he needs my endorsement, I'll sure will give it to him today. Being close to that level when he's ready to identify himself on that rung of the ladder, shall we say. So, well, what is your favorite subject matter and materials used, basically? Do you use use oils? Do you use a drying? Some oils take 8 years to dry or cure, as we say. So how do you look at that? Have you researched that any at all?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I, in the course of growing and painting, I read a lot, so I bought a book from, what's the name of it? It's Virgil Elliott. It's all about oil painting, and Virgil Elliott has been a painter his whole life, and he's also somewhat of a scientist, and that's where I learned that titanium white can take up to a year to cure, so you can't varnish a painting if you're using, or not supposed to, you're using titanium white.
BJ, I have that at 8 years, the way I was taught.
Well,
And thus they've improved the drying technique. That's interesting, that new information. So
Yeah.
you've learned that it's only taken a year now.
yeah.
Oh, well, that's good news for me, because I can finish that painting.
So I kept reading and watching podcasts about other painters. And this one interview that I saw from a gentleman in New Zealand, his name is Andrew Tischler. He's an excellent artist.
Tischler, one of my favorite.
Anyway, he was interviewing an artist up in St. Paul, Minnesota. His name is Joe Paquette, and that's Paquet. And Joe came across as being very down to earth, very humble. He's not in it for gimmicks. You know, you got to learn the proper way. There's no tricks to it, and just a well-rounded human being. And so I started trying to find more podcasts with Joe on it, and I did. And then I went to his website, and on his website he said he had one spot available for mentorship. And I thought, oh my gosh. And I got that feeling, you know, in your chest when something feels right. And so I sent him an email, and I was out in the garden working the next day, and my phone rings, and it said Joe Paquette calling, and I'm like, oh my Lord. So I had my first interview with Joe Paquette, and he took me on as a mentor. He is in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Okay.
And his website is joepaquette.com. He does plein air work, and that's where I've evolved into. I love to paint outside.
Right.
Get outside, because it's nothing like in your studio.
Right.
And Joe he does these 30 by 40s, 30 by 50s, 40 by 50 paintings, plein air outside that just your jaw will drop.
Right.
And he has taught me a lot. I hooked up with him in May of last year. And this year I went to the PACE convention, or plein air convention and expo. It's called PACE 2024, and Joe was the opening speaker and closing speaker.
Oh, excellent.
And I got to go out and paint with him. He told me the very first day we're going to sneak out and go paint.
And that was a blessing.
Yes, sir. And I'm over here getting all set up and stuff, and Joe's over there, and he's painting, and I'm watching him paint, and he's mixing up some color, and he just does a stroke. And I'm over here slinging paint as a rookie, and he looks over at my stuff, and he says, BJ, you need to gray those green down. And I'm, what's that? And he says, you need to gray your greens down. And I'm like, what are you talking about? So I got a quick lesson in how to gray your greens down, and it's been go ever since.
That's mixing a tone, different tones of gray.
Yes, sir.
Now, I shared with you at the SVAA meeting using the complementary color that I learned from Master years ago. So have you been able to experiment with the complementary color,
Oh, yes.
green versus red? I've wondered how you was doing with that.
Yes, sir.
My little tip.
A little bit of orange helps, or a little bit of scarlet as well.
Scarlet, yes. Oh, great.
So,
Yes.
yeah,
yes.
it
Make some
works.
great browns. Eventually a black with orange and purple, what have you, or blue,
Yeah.
depending on the yellow content.
Violet,
It's a green.
yes, sir.
Violet. Well, super. So that's great to hear. Now, how do you begin a painting? Do you draw sketches? Do you take pictures?
Yes, sir. I do what they call thumbnails. I may do 6 per sheet, and I may do that 2 or 3 sheets just to get an idea of what I want to do.
A drawing?
Well, a thumbnail,
Sketch.
yeah, just a small sketch.
Yes.
You know? And then once it clicks with me, then I'll do a larger sketch, you know, with more detail.
Good.
So I can make sure the composition is where it needs to be to draw you in.
Now, how do you, looking at the Dutch masters, a lot of times in preparation of the canvas, the underpainting, what is your favorite underpainting? Do you do those browns for good underpainting? A lot of gesso, or
Yes, sir. Joe has taught me that it's a lot easier when you're plein air painting if you're not facing a white canvas. You don't have to feel intimidated, because when you're out there and the whole world is facing you, and you're trying to figure out what you're going to paint. A white canvas can be a deterrent. So Joe says you need to tone your canvas with raw umber and white.
Well, if there's one technique you'd like to share with the viewers worldwide, what would that be? Pin you down a little bit there, BJ.
Okay. The best advice I've gotten so far, I think, from Joe is the underpainting is key to the best start you can do. And he has taught me to do underpaintings using cobalt blue, black, ivory black, and white. And using those to make different values
Yes.
in color as to the darkness or the lightness that you're looking at. And then once that's dried, and by the way, he says always use 50-50 of Gamsol and linseed oil as a
Yes.
medium.
Now, you spoke of all this preparation and your techniques. We have favorites here on the fireplace, so can you tell us a little bit about those there? BJ?
Yes, sir. The one on the far left over there is from Edisto Island. It's a marsh scene, and it's a sunset. Joe Paquette is known for the prismatic palette.
Yes, that's a good
And
point.
he is trying to teach me the prismatic palette. And when we interviewed, I told him, I said, I just want to learn the prismatic palette.
Yes.
And he said, that's going to take you 4 years. And I said, Joe, I don't have 4 years.
Yeah. Now define that.
Prismatic palette basically is when you're looking at the world, everything is in the colors of the rainbow. You've got red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet. The 6 colors of the rainbow.
Yes.
And when you're looking at a sunset or a sunrise, every one of those colors is in that prism that you're looking at.
Exactly.
You just have to see it.
Yeah. Now looking at this landscape, I see that you have a yellow on the clouds.
Yes, sir.
Now tell the folks how you somehow capture that without turning the sky green on the edges. So,
Very, very carefully.
very carefully.
You don't have a lot of time when you're painting plein air. You have 7 minutes, and then the next 7 minutes things change. And then the one in the middle is from Edisto. It's just the bottom of the island. If you walk all the way down to the bottom, you can see the Atlantic Ocean forever.
Oh,
And,
yes, very good. Depth.
that one there turned out, as Bob Ross said, there's always happy accidents. And when I was doing my clouds, and I stood back and looked at it, there's a heart in there, and
Yes.
I didn't do that on
That's it.
purpose.
I had the same problem. I paint clouds. I've got animals and everything. An angel in one of my last ones showed up. So
And that's from Wilmington, North Carolina. And I call that one Sailor Beware, because red sky in the morning, sailor take warning, right?
well, you know, BJ, you've been invited to my exhibit
Thank
in
you.
Jefferson City. Anyone that's been on the program, been interviewed, that's over 300 now since 2016. My idea of trying to share artists' work, their skills, and their story, a life story, and how art came about in their life. So I've been really fortunate. Well, I have the show exhibit at the Runge Conservation Nature Center in Jefferson City. The Department of Natural Resources gives me that venue. So everyone is invited. I can only handle 50, 51, counting myself. So I encourage Joe to accept my invitation and be one of those first 50. I may even call you to make sure that happens. Not that I would try to call all 300, you know. That's kind of difficult.
Yes, sir.
So you're invited to that, and I'll be
appreciate
keeping you in touch there. Do you have any other exhibit venues coming up currently, or
No, sir.
in the future?
I just had a paint out, a plein air paint out in Rocheport on the 12th, 13th, and 14th.
That's Rocheport, Missouri.
Yes, sir.
Well, we're about to run out of time, so Do you have any closing words you'd like to pass on to the viewers? Maybe a personal message for those beginning artists like yourself or the art community worldwide that you'd like to touch base with?
Well, if I were to give anyone my take on painting, just paint. You can't get better if you don't paint. You just be humble and stick to it. Just sling the paint. You'll learn it. You may find your style is different from someone else, and that's okay. And never ever compare yourself with another artist.
Exactly. Never. Because your art is your art, and that's you. That represents you and your heart. When you run that brush or you're blowing that glass or wood carving or whatever, that's coming from your hand and your mind and your heart. And like BJ said, never compare yourself to, as far as credibility or what have you, to another artist. Just be yourself, do what you can to please your heart, and hopefully someone out there will also enjoy what you're doing. So that's a very good way of putting it. Well, we're about to run out of time. I want to thank you once again for contributing to
Well, thank you.
Spotlight on the Arts. It's really been an inspiring visit with you, and actually an informational, educational experience for everyone. So thank you so much again.
And thank you.
BJ.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Well, that wraps up another Spotlight on the Arts here with Rick Jey. Rick Jey Presents on YouTube. And now we have a new streaming network called GMN Plus Streaming Network, Global Media Network TV Plus. And that I'll put that on the timeline so you can tune in, see BJ's interview, and a bunch more as I get the time to add a lot of those 300 that's already up on YouTube and our previous streaming network. So I invite you to tune in and see. If you get into a lull, tune in to YouTube Rick Jey Presents Spotlight on the Arts and view some of the other artists. That's a kind of inspirational. They may give you an idea. Sharing their heartfelt story alone might pick you up and get you started back. But just don't stop, like BJ says. Just don't stop. So thank you again. Rick Jey saying take care. See you next time.